Welcome to Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff. Today is Monday, July 21st, 2025. So as we start off with the map, we're going to look at the WWA map for the first one. You notice all the oranges and magentas around, as well as some burgundy colors in there. That is all due to the expanding heat. As I kind of alluded to yesterday, I believe, from what I have been able to figure out, that the criteria across the United States has gotten a little bit more uniform for a lot of this. However, there is a demarcation between southern states and northern states. That southern state, northern state line starts over in Virginia and North Carolina. That border cuts across Tennessee, goes into Arkansas, the Arkansas-Missouri border, then the Kansas-Oklahoma border, and I believe the Four Corner states then, with Arizona and New Mexico being in the south, as well as Utah and Colorado being in the north. So the northern ones have heat indices of 100 or better for an advisory and 105 for an extreme heat warning. And in the south, which I was in Corpus Christi before I retired, that was 105 for an advisory and 110 for an extreme heat warning. So we see from yesterday that it's started to spread out the warnings and advisories from just that area there in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and part of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and it's starting to spread northward. The first places are going to be just west of the warm front that's supposed to go through here today, up in the northern plains. And then the Chicago forecast area, as well as then the Davenport office in Iowa, and some of those other adjoining offices are all expected to have some sort of heat condition in the next day or two after that. So there are an extreme heat watch or a heat watch. I don't remember what the title is on that one. Otherwise, you see up in northern Minnesota, we still have air quality alerts due to smoke from the Canadian fires. It hasn't been spreading much further than, at least as far as air quality is concerned, out of that area of northern Minnesota. And we do have a dense fog advisory up in the northwestern portion of North Dakota. And it almost stretches down in the southwestern county, couple of southwestern counties where I used to do cloud seeding a long time ago. And then out in the west, we have our typical red flag warnings that are during this time when the heat and humidity, well, the humidity drops and the winds do tend to kick up every once in a while. So we've got that going. And then there is a flood watch in northern Washington. All right. Otherwise, yes, there is another heat advisory that continues down in the south along the east coast, the southeastern states from North Carolina all the way down to Florida. Although I did want to show the radar here. This has the day one outlook on it as well. And we'll take a look at what the fronts look like here in a bit. You can see there is a slight risk there in eastern Montana that goes into central North Dakota and northwestern South Dakota, as well as then there's a precipitation discussion with that MCS, that complex of thunderstorms there that's between Kansas City and St. Louis, although the storms themselves look like they're starting to diminish a bit, but the specific, let's see what, and we'll click on that, and the precipitation goes for another 4 hours. So there's still at least some expectation for heavy rain going on. Otherwise, we have lots of general thunderstorms expected across the country. And we'll get into that in more detail here just in a minute. Take a look at the upper air map. They're a little bit more amplified as far as the trough and ridges are concerned. So we've got a trough of low pressure that's trying to work its way down into the Pacific Northwest. So there's a potent little shortwave with that that's starting to enhance some of it. That area that we had outlined this morning for the day one outlook fits with that jet max that's there in Minnesota or Montana and Idaho. And so as that progresses across the region here today, that would probably be one of the reasons why there is a severe threat up there. And we do have a ridge in the center, and that is going to, as it amplifies a little bit with the trough trying to push into the area, but then riding up it, it's going to force a little bit more of the high pressure in the jet stream to move north, which means the heat starts to move north. And then there's also this low up here in the Canadian Maritime provinces that as it continues to move a little bit more east, that's going to take this whole jet streak out of the area, and that should start to flatten some of it, but it helps to spread the heat a little bit further to the east, which could be an issue here as we get into the rest of the week. Otherwise, looking at the surface analysis across the country, we still have that pesky front that stretches basically into the mid-Atlantic states off of the east coast there, and then trails all the way out through the mid-Mississippi River Valley into the Central Plains, and then into, I dare to say that I'd call that maybe the Northern Rockies as we get into a little bit into Montana, and then almost off the west coast there on the Oregon-California border. This has been the main demarcation between the really hot weather and the seasonable northern summer. And like I said, that kind of lines up with what the jet stream is doing currently. We want to take a little bit look at this. Here's that same surface analysis at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. If we jump ahead to 2 p.m. Eastern Time, you see that the front hasn't changed a whole lot. You got all the rain and thunderstorms that are expected with that, or with the heat of the day there in the southeastern states. The main areas where they're expecting the heavier rain would be down there in eastern Kentucky. And we'll take a little bit of a look at the ERO here in a bit. Otherwise, up to the north, you've got the potential for severe weather in Montana and the Pacific Northwest. A lot of them will be along the mountains, but you will have some out in the eastern plains of Montana. By the evening, there is a potential for severe weather, and that's where the slight risk is that the SPC has out, and that front just kind of continues to sit. We'll jump ahead now by 12 hours. By the next morning, that'll be pushing most of the rain back up to the north. We start to see the heat expand as that all the warmer air there would be from Texas all the way up into South Dakota. Another 24 hours, and we'll see that we do have a potential for the front coming through. I think I saw that that is a potential for northern Michigan to be into the slight risk at that point. But we'll take a look at that here in a bit. And then Thursday it comes through, so day 4, Friday, and then the weekend. And you kind of notice the fronts really don't move a whole lot. Although the one starts to, on Wednesday morning, is starting to wash out, the one that we've had across the central part of the United States for so long. And it looks like that some of that homegrown tropical weather mass on the East Coast or in the Gulf Coast, it looks like it's going to start getting its act together at least and provide probably heavy rain in that time period. Okay, we'll jump ahead into the local forecasts. If you don't want to hear any more about the tropics, which I am going to probably do a longer video on here in a bit. Hot this week from the Corpus Christi office, and they have a very nice graphic here so that you can pick out at least the closest town to you and see what the temperatures are. But if you look at the maximum temperatures, that's one way, but you look at that maximum heat index, and almost all of South Texas is just going to be just under or just either side of 105 degrees as far as the heat index is concerned. And that's looking at like Port Lavaca, where they're approaching the extreme with the 110. Actually, there's 109 on Thursday. So that'll be something though. So there'll be some advisories, heat advisories out that will spread into South Texas here over this week. It looks like it's really close today on Monday. We'll see how things progress, but there could be some headlines put out here during the next week. Otherwise, just looking at the high temperatures across the region, mid or upper 80s there along the coast, on the coastal areas, as then it gets into the lower 90s and then mid 90s in the Victoria Crossroads and the rest of the coastal plain. You get into the brush country, and then you're looking at 95 to 105 with Laredo at 104 and Tilden at 102. All right. As we look at northern Michigan, and I will do a little bit more closer map so you can kind of see this. I also have the Detroit forecast area pulled up for their graphic. So today, 70s across northern Michigan, highs of 78 to 84 on Wednesday. Highs Thursday will be in the 80s up to 91, and we'll take a look at where that's all placed. Thursday highs will be 80 to 85 in the UP and 85 to 95 in the lower peninsula. But they're basically muggy, chance of storms midweek. So that'll be Wednesday and Thursday when we get the chances, and then it should be out of here by Friday. The Detroit office, very similar in that, because it'll be on the cooler side there Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, when the front comes through, we're going to be into the upper 80s, into the lower 90s. And then Thursday, again, the chance of showers with the temperatures in southeast lower Michigan in the lower to mid 90s. I would show the Grand Rapids one, but there isn't a Grand Rapids graphics. I started to pull up the DESI graphics. So for today's high temperatures across the region, we've got lower 70s there in northeast lower that go to right around 80 as you get down towards the southwestern portion, Ludington, Manistee area. That orange area is 80 plus in the temperatures there in northern Michigan. You can see southeast lower, and basically you can that would be this area here as we were talking about, and they're lower 70s to around 80 degrees as well. There is a surge of warm air that's going to come up the west coast, and that basically puts the Grand Rapids forecast area. So that's basically everything there on the map. And those temperatures look like they're going to be upper 70s to the mid 80s. Would not be surprised if there's some 85s in there, maybe some 86s, especially with South Bend, which is in the northern Indiana office forecast area. It's showing 84. And then for tomorrow, across the state, temperatures are about 5 degrees warmer than they'll be today. with temperatures ranging from the mid 70s there around northeast lower, and then getting into the lower to mid 80s across especially West Michigan, from about Muskegon and Fremont south down 196 into I-94 right there along the Lake Michigan shoreline. So we're not looking at lake breezes coming in off of Lake Michigan today or the next couple of days. We are looking for probably southerly winds that will bring some warmer temperatures up into the state. Okay, so here is the tropical portion of the discussion. So currently, we now have 94L. They decided to make it an invest. There is a little bit of a circulation there, but it's not a great one. It's hard to, I don't think it stays together very well, but currently they give a 20% chance of it forming into an actual depression in the next 48 hours, and that also carries over to the next 7 days. That's currently the only thing that they have going in the tropics. There are several waves, and this is the main tropical wave that they're watching. That's right along the ITCZ, or also known as the monsoon trough. There is another wave that is following behind it, and I think there's expected to be another one that comes off of Africa here in the next couple of days, and that could be some concern for later on into next week. Speaking of which, let's see here. But as far as 94L is concerned, I wanted to kind of show with what the idea has been going with. Let's turn these back to 0. Okay, so I got a hold of the parent models here on Tropical Tidbits. So each of the specific hurricane models has a parent that runs at a much larger scale, so that it can get all the information from the boundary conditions, so that the main model itself can focus primarily on just the tropical system. In this case, I've got the HAFS A parent. Whoops, don't want the model sounding. So starting at, and this is the 200 to 850 millibar wind shear and the low center. You can see that to the north of the center currently that there's a lot of wind shear going on. So if it goes north, it's going to get sheared apart. There's some into the south. I think part of that has to do with the fact that the storm itself is causing some. And then we're going to, as it continues to move on, the storm starts to lose its integrity, probably because of the fact that that shear area starts to fall a little bit further south. It tries to stay in that non-shear area there, getting into, I think that's the Windward Islands. But it really can't develop. That's pretty much the case if we go into the H-Wharf parent, which is the older model, hurricane model out of these. It actually has, it keeps the low, but it is just skirting along and getting sheared apart as it gets into the Leeward and Windward Islands. So we'll just have to see the global models. I do want to look at the GFS, but as you look, the GFS barely has the trough. This is the 200 to 850 wind shear and the low centers. It doesn't even show a low center in here. And then as everything starts to move, again, it's just like what the H-Wharf and the HAFS B parents were showing, was that area of shear just interferes with everything as we get into it. The next system, as it comes in off of Africa, it's liable to run into the same thing. So right now, looking at the Europeans' ensemble, and this is for the tropical cyclones. Each one of these is for the 21st through the 28th, and it's each run that has occurred at 0Z on that day. So this was from Saturday evening, 0Z on the 20th. It's the latest one that they have in their groupings. You can see that for as far as tropical cyclones are concerned, they were expecting these waves to start working, although it's gotten more likely as it's gone along. But that's just for tropical cyclones. And I'll go all the way back to the 12th, it's been doing something. It's also been showing something, trying to form as what we called that homegrown, as the front goes off and just kind of stalls out there, helps to promote showers and thunderstorms there on the Gulf Coast, all the way up the southeastern part of the Atlantic coast, and out over the water, that you get something that with tropical characteristics that forms. If we go on to the next week, the 28th through the 4th, we see pretty much that same sort of pattern. It is getting into August, which is the part we start heading into the height of the tropical season, with the peak being around September 10th. It continues on. We see that same basic pattern has been trying to coalesce for that time period on the resulting model runs. And just to go into August 4th through the 11th, you can see the same thing. But what I'm starting to notice here is that the chance for getting a cyclone, a tropical cyclone, is starting to ramp down a bit. So we are running into some issues. It could be that we are setting up too strong of a wind shear pattern. We'll have to see. That high there that's been over the Bermuda high over to the Azores may just be providing too much wind shear in there. That's a possibility. I'm not going to say that that's going to, or that we won't see anything. And then we also see those fronts that just kind of stall as they go off the East Coast and then form things like Chantal or 93L for that matter. So let's go back. If you're wondering what does that's just for the tropical cyclones. Well, the tropical storms right now during those same periods are not much different. Very low chance possibilities, at least on each of the models. Things kind of appear and then disappear. So there's a very low chance, 5 to 10%, 5 to 15%. Let's zoom in on one. 5 to 10%. That's what that magenta sort of color is there. There's the 28th through the 4th I meant to do before. So the expectation is that things are starting to look somewhat on the quiet side. It's not that we don't have the water temperatures, but the other ingredient that we would tend to have during this time period is just not getting what we need. All right, so we'll see how this season turns out, but to reiterate, 93L doesn't look like it's going anywhere, and like I said, the forecast, the National Hurricane Center only has a 20% chance of this thing increasing. And with that, I'm going to close everything out. So have a wonderful day.